Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys a series review of Star Wars Visions. I'm going to be going through my review for each of the episodes. This is going to be mostly spoiler free. I'm going to be talking just a little bit about the synopsis of each episode. So if you don't want to go in completely blind like I did, then I wouldn't watch this video and I would come back to it later. But not only am I going to be reviewing the episodes, I'm also going to be ranking them all at the end, as well as giving you guys a score for each individual episode. Before we get into it, if you guys are new in here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a video or I go live. But without wasting more time, let's get into it. So starting it off with episode 1, it's called The Duel. I thought this was the best episode by far. It had a fairly basic story where it was just a samurai comes in, or basically like a Ronin type of character comes in and he saves a village. That's the only story. It's basic, but it's phenomenally done. It's also one of the shortest episodes. I think the shortest one's 13 minutes, this one's 15, but it works perfectly in my opinion. This is the perfect runtime. I would love to see an entire show or entire like few episodes maybe in the next season with this animation style specifically, but I don't think the story has any more to tell, and I'm glad they kept it to 15 minutes. I'm also glad that they released all the episodes at once, but I'll be giving a whole series review at the end of this video, so again, stay tuned for that. But back to episode 1, I really liked the animation style. I loved that it was black and white, and I loved the hints of colors. There was like little hints at the end of the episode. He had like this blue gem on his wrist. That blue illuminated just that area. A lot of the stuff with the lightsabers, red, blue, and green, all of those colors were so well done. Also the gems at the end of the episode inside of the guy's coat, that was all perfect. Everything looked really beautiful in my opinion, and I think that the animation style in this episode was the best one out of any episode of this entire show. So I really hope this studio comes back to do another episode or another few episodes in the future season of Star Wars Visions. I also thought, like I mentioned before, the plot progression was absolutely perfect. It was only 15 minutes. It was the perfect story in the perfect amount of time. Overall, I'd give Star Wars Visions episode 1 a 10 out of 10. Next episode is episode 2. It was called Tatooine Rhapsody. I thought this one felt too childish. I just wasn't a fan of the animation style either. It just felt too kid-like, especially after that first episode where it felt super gritty and just super grounded and so realistic. This one just felt like it was out there. Also, the first episode didn't necessarily feel like a Star Wars thing where it was like, okay, obviously it's troops, but it told more a story of a Ronin type of character, which we've seen in the MCU. Like, it can happen in any setting. It's just a general story. I felt like episode 2 relied so much on the Star Wars lore. If you guys didn't know, this show is not canon to the Star Wars universe. It just takes Star Wars lore and puts it into anime shows, and so that's what I like about it. But this episode really relied not only on knowing characters, really, because I knew a lot of the characters. A lot of the characters were basic household Star Wars names, but I just didn't like how dependent it was on the Star Wars lore, because especially after the first episode, how not only grounded but also how serious it was. Also, the combat was way better in the first episode, and overall, I just like if they put like episodes 2 and maybe episode 6 together, they were both more on a childish level. I will say episode 6 was much better though. Episode 6 was really great towards the end. This one, it just obviously also it wasn't like the formula. It wasn't like a big build up to a final battle at the end. It wasn't like that. So this one definitely felt more tailored towards children. Overall, I was not a fan of this episode at all. I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. But episode 3, it's called The Twins. It was a phenomenal story, and I hope they make an entire Disney Plus miniseries about this story, because they left it on an open note. They left it to where the two twins could come back together and meet, and some story could go down again. I don't want to spoil the outcome of the episode, but it was a basic rivalry story, and it really truly worked. Also, the final battle was phenomenal. A lot of these episodes, like I mentioned before, they're paced to where it's like a big build up to a final battle. Every episode except for episode 2 has a massive final battle, and I really like the final battle in this one, especially because this one took more space in the outdoor, like the space area of Star Wars. It wasn't necessarily like on a planet or on a certain terrain. It was in space, on ships, like on the outside of ships. It was really well done in my opinion. I also liked the animation style. It wasn't necessarily my favorite, but I still thought it was a pretty cool animation style. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 9.5 out of 10. Now, episode 4, it's called The Village Bridge. I thought this one was one of the better episodes because of how layered the stories were. A lot of the writing in general in this show wasn't anything to write home about, but I will say episode 4, it had a nice layered story. I think it was on the longer side. I think it was like top 3 longest episodes out of the 9. Also, the twist was great. It was slightly predictable, but it was still a great twist. I also like the animation style. It was cool, but it's not like my favorite in the entire show. But nevertheless, the action was absolutely awesome. In the end, I actually felt like had a lot of stakes. I felt like any character could die at any moment, whereas I didn't really feel that with all the other episodes. So overall, I give episode 4 an 8.5 out of 10. Now, episode 5 is called The Ninth Jedi. Now, at first, when I first watched this, I really liked it, but I went back and rewatched some episodes that I was iffy on, and honestly, this episode went down to 0.5 rating for me, which I'll tell you at the end of this episode review. But honestly, I thought episode 5 had a great story. It was sad, but still rewarding. There was a great twist in the middle of the episode, and I liked the animation, and the writing was actually really good. It actually felt layered, but my only thing is the ending just felt so fast. I really didn't like the ending of this episode because it was like so fun, so action-packed. The story was so layered, and it actually made a lot of sense. It might have been one of the most layered yet cohesive episodes in this entire show, but at the end of the day, the episode itself just ended on such a weird note and in such a weird way that it didn't feel actually fulfilling, which is kind of weird to me. So initially I had this one at an 8.5 out of 10, but now it's an 8 out of 10. Next up is episode 6. It's titled T0B1. I wasn't the biggest fan of the animation. It was like really rounded, and just I don't know why I associate round animation with childish animation, but that's just what it reminded me of. But I still thought the animation was cool. I will say episode 2 wasn't a fan of the animation, and I honestly didn't even think that was cool either, but this animation style, it was weirdly childish but still cool at the same time. So I felt like it found a balance between episode 2 and all the other styles that I really like. The story, I will say though, wasn't the best until the very end of the episode, and the end of the episode, after the little twist happens, that's when the episode really ramps up. But that's at least 3/4 of the way through the episode, so I can't say most of the episode is really that great. I will say though, the final fight was awesome, and also it tried to be super emotional in the beginning. It didn't really work for me. Towards the end, when the emotions started hitting in that last 1/4, it got really good. But the first 3/4 of the episode was just kind of boring to me. It wasn't it, in my opinion. Overall, I'd give this one a 7 out of 10. But now to go to episode 7, it's called The Elder. I thought this one had a great story, a great villain, a great twist, perfect combat, in the coloring. It was so unique. I loved it. I will also say the dialogue in this episode, I will say top 3 of the show. I thought the dialogue made the whole concept of the young Padawan really interesting, especially because in this episode, it's more of not a father-son relationship, but it's just a kid who wants to prove himself. And when we see the darker side of that kid, when we see when he's finally starting to get defeated, we see him come up. It's not like a classic rising up story, which I really did like. It wasn't just a basic rising up cliche, oh, I got defeated, I'm gonna work harder and come back. That's not how the episode plays out. Overall, I will say this episode's dialogue is what really intrigued me at the end of the day, and that's why I really liked it. Obviously, along with the animation style, which is great. It was kind of basic. I see a lot of animes with that animation style, but I still really liked it. But I also thought the coloring was super unique, just like episode 1. So overall, I'd give episode 7 a solid 9 out of 10. Now, moving on to episode 8, it's called Lop and Ocho. This was the most surprising episode because in the beginning, I really didn't care for, but once the family stuff started going on a roll and we saw the twist with the sister, that was great. And just at the end of the day, I cared more about the family than I thought I would, and that's a big up for me because personally, I don't really care for these fantasy animal characters like the main character in this episode. I always have a hard time connecting with fantasy animals and fantasy elements and stuff like that, but it didn't feel like it was an animal. It didn't feel like it was some creature. It actually felt like a human, and that's what I really liked. I also will say the final battle was one of the best of the series. I would say episode 1's final battle and then episode 8's final battle, they're right there neck and neck. Overall, I give episode 8, Lop and Ocho, an 8.5 out of 10. But moving on to the final episode, I'm going to be honest, I don't have much to say about this, but episode 9, it's called A Cockery, I think that's how you call it, but I don't remember much of this episode. I'm going to be honest. I saw this episode twice. I almost fell asleep the second time, but I will say it wasn't the animation really saved it on this one, okay? I did not like this episode that much at all. The story was cool, it just wasn't interesting. It was another Sith Lord comes to take over. Maybe it's because it was the last episode and I felt like the whole Sith Lord thing was just getting overdone maybe, but when I went back to watch the other episodes, I never felt that way. So I think there was just something wrong with this episode that I can't think of off the top of my head, but Again, the story was cool, just wasn't the most interesting. The animation was pretty good in my opinion, but that's the only reason that I don't think it's the absolute worst episode, is because the animation is pretty good, and then also the story was like, it just wasn't that interesting, but it was still a cool concept. So overall, I give episode 9 a 6.5 out of 10. All right, guys, so now I'm gonna go ahead and rank every single episode in Star Wars Visions. I'm gonna rank them from worst to best. So in 9th place is episode 2, Tatooine Rhapsody. In 8th place is gonna be episode 9, A Cockery. In 7th place is gonna be episode 6, T0B1. In 6th place is gonna be episode 5, The Ninth Jedi. In 5th place is gonna be episode 8, Lop and Ocho. In 4th place is gonna be episode 4, The Village Bridge. In 3rd place is gonna be episode 7, The Elder. In 2nd place is gonna be episode 3, The Twins. And in 1st place is gonna be episode 1, The Duel. Again, episode 1 for me is a 10 out of 10. Perfect episode, perfect length, perfect story, perfect timing, perfect pacing, perfect action, perfect animation, perfect everything. Episode 1 is a 10 out of 10. But yeah, guys, that's it for my spoiler-free review of Star Wars Visions. If you guys are new around here and you guys like this type of content, all these TV show reviews, movie reviews, reactions, all that sort of stuff, make sure that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a new video or I go live. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.